Hey everyone, Kareem again, doing another one of the videos for the Jazz Big Band. Hope everybody's doing well and doing okay and not going too stir crazy. Get a chance to practice, hopefully, and hopefully these videos are helping you. Um, so the last video we talked about a bunch of scales and tried to cram as much as I could into 20 minutes, but I wanted to go back and kind of do some things that will help maybe make these things a little bit easier for you guys to practice. So what I wanted to talk about today kind of pertains to major scales, and you can also apply this information towards your pentatonic scales and your blues scales. And why this information is important is instead of having to practice multiple types of different scales, you can simplify it down to just 12 scales. And 12 is still a fair amount of scales, I get that, but it cuts your workload in half if you understand this concept and makes your life a little bit easier. So what I wanted to talk about today first was the concept of relative minor. Now, some of you have learned this, and we've talked about this in class a little bit, and if you've taken theory with Paul, you've probably gone over this as well, but I wanted to kind of just rehash it a little bit and go over to make sure you guys really get the concept. So the concept here is when we talk about relative minors, we've already discussed major scales, and at this point we should have a pretty good idea of how to find major scales and build them and construct them and finger and spell them on our instruments, and the chords as well. So hopefully you can at this point, and if not, refer to some of the other videos or feel free to get in touch with Paul and myself, or you can also Google this stuff online, and find it too. So with relative minor, the concept here is we have major scales. So I'm going to go back to my C major scale, no sharps, no flats. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And coming back down, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. So the idea of relative minor is what it is every major scale has what's called a relative minor scale, and it's found on the 6th degree of the scale. Now, if you've studied modes, and in the past video I said, every major scale has 7 other scales built inside of it. So this is one of those scales. It's if you want to talk about modes, the scale starting on the 1st degree is Ionian, and this would be on the 6th degree, which is called Aeolian. So if you haven't studied modes, don't sweat it. All you need to know is if you understand your major scales, you can find the relative minor scale, and it's found on the 6th degree. And it shares the exact same notes. You don't change any notes. It's all the same notes, but it does have a different characteristic sound to it. So again, here's the major scale. Sorry. Now if I start on 1 here and I count up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that gets me to A. So if I build a scale now from A to A using no sharps or no flats, same key signature as the C major scale, I'll get A Aeolian or A natural minor, which is the relative minor of C major. So here's starting on A, and give a listen. Now what I'm going to do right now for context so your ear can hear this is I'm going to play the A major scale, which has 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, and compare those back to back so you can hear the difference in the sound of the 2 scales. So here's A major with 3 sharps. And then here's the A minor scale that I just played. So the takeaway from this, like I said, what I want you to get out of this video is that every major scale has what's called a relative minor scale, and it's found on the 6th degree of the scale. So you can start on the 1st note of that major scale and just count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the 6th note of the scale, and that will be the relative minor scale. And again, it shares the same key signature. There's no different notes. You just play it from that starting point and play straight up from that note up an octave and back down, and that's the relative minor scale. It's also called natural minor, and for those of you that have studied modes, it's the Aeolian mode is what we're talking about here. So another way to figure this out, if I play my C scale, instead of starting at the bottom, I'm going to start at the top here, and I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So instead of counting up 6, like if I count up 6, let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gets me to A. You can also go the other direction. You can count down 2 notes from the 1st note of the scale, and that'll get you the same answer, C, B, A. So however you want to do it, if you want to count up 6, that works. If you want to count back 3, you'll get the same answer. And so that is the relative minor scale. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, hang on one second. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you can apply this, and this comes in handy when we are playing pentatonic scales and blues scales. Now, what I mean by that, and we talked about in the last video, is how to construct pentatonic scales. That if you understand how to build your major pentatonic scales, you can practice all 12 of the major pentatonic scales. It will end up being the same set of notes as the minor pentatonic scales. So if you look at it like 12 major pentatonics and 12 minor pentatonic scales, well, now you have to practice 24 separate things, 24 separate scales. Whereas if you understand this concept, if you realize that the major pentatonics and the minor pentatonics are the same, well, now you only have to practice 12 things as opposed to 24. And the same thing applies to your blues scale. So it cuts your workload in half. So that's why I want to make sure you understand this and show you like this is how to apply it so you can make your life a lot easier and not have to work as hard. Not that working hard is not good, but work smarter, not harder, right? So if I go to recap, a pentatonic scale, a general explanation is it's a 5-note scale. And usually what we do is we take the major scale and we get rid of the 4th note and we get rid of the 6th note. And the reason we do that is because that's where the half steps occur in the scale. And half steps is where tension occurs.
Meow, 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 meow.
Obviously, that has a certain amount of dissonance to it. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Meow, 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 meow.
Now, it's easy to see on the piano because it always goes white, black, but between 3 and 4, there's no white key, which means there's the half steps.
Meow.
And between 7 and 8, there's no black key. So they're half steps right next to one another.
Meow.
So what we do here is we get rid of 4 and we get rid of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4 is gone. 5, 6, 7 is gone. So
Meow.
these guys are out of the scale. So for C major, that leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8. C, D, E, G, A, C. And now we have...
Meow, 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 meow.
You hear this in lots of music from all around the world, but typically like Asia, you hear this kind of sounds in traditional music. And then also wind chimes, things of that nature. And it gets rid of that dissonance. It's very hard to play a note that sounds wrong because there's no dissonance when you use this. So, anyways, so what you want to start with here is the concept of being able to play, figure out your 12 major pentatonics, right? So just take all your 12 major scales, get rid of 4 and get rid of 7 and play that. You hear this a lot, like guitar players typically will do pentatonics quite a bit for lots of different things. It's just kind of easier to do that on the guitar, but on most instruments, it's not that difficult to figure out, so you can, fool around with this. So now, if I played, like we just talked about relative minor, if I played my C major pentatonic, well now, if I start on A instead of C, that'll give me my set of notes for the A minor pentatonic. So it's all the exact same notes. So if I go, okay, C, D, E, G, A, that's still 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I use that same set of notes, C, D, E, G, A, C, and I start on A, now you have A, C, D, E, G, A. Same notes, I'm just starting on A instead of C. So now I get... And so in terms of a natural minor scale, that is... Instead of, for the major scale, we got rid of 4 and 7. For minor, if you get rid of those same notes, it ends up being 2 and 6. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. 1, 2. There's my half steps. 3, 4, 5, 6. There's my half steps. So you get rid of 2 and 6. And again, it's the exact same set of notes as the major pentatonic. So if you understand the correlation to, okay, the major scale and the relative minor scale on the 6th degree, and then you start building out your pentatonics, it's the exact same notes, so you don't have to practice two different things. So again, here's the C major pentatonic.
Meow, 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 meow.
Now here's the A minor pentatonic.
Meow, 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 meow.
So that's how to apply this, and that's why this is important. So we want to say, okay, G major's got 1 sharp, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. Okay, if I get rid of, for the major, we get rid of 4, we get rid of 7. That leaves me with 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8.
Meow, 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 meow.
So that's my G major pentatonic scale, and it will be the same thing as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 E minor pentatonic. So now if I start on E and I play the same set of notes, well, now there's my E minor pentatonic. So G major, E minor. Thinking through another one, let's go to D major. So D major's got two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, D, C sharp, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The relative minor for D major would be B, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. All right, so if I play that. Okay, going back to figure out the pentatonics now. If I start on D, 1, 2, 3, 4, get rid of G, 5, 6, 7, get rid of C sharp. All right, so then if I start on the sixth note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and use those same notes, I'll get the B minor pentatonic scale. Now, in regards to blues scales, one second here. Blues scales are, all blues scales are really are pentatonics with one extra note added to it. Same thing applies here where we talk about major pentatonics and minor pentatonics. We have major blues scales and minor blues scales. So if I go back to C major and I play my major pentatonic. Oh, sorry. That's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8. If I add a flat 3 to this, I'll get a major pentatonic scale, a major blues scale. So a major blues scale is a major pentatonic scale with a flat 3 added into the scale. 1, 2, flat 3, 3, 5, 6, 8. So that's the major blues scale. So as you can probably imagine, if I start on C, well now if I go up to A, my C major blues scale is the same thing as the A minor blues scale. So really when you're practicing these things and practicing the finger patterns, you're practicing two things simultaneously. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now if I start on A and play the same notes, I have 1, 2, or 1, 3, 4. And now I'm going to add that E flat. In this instance, in relation to A, we call that a sharp 4, because A would be 1, 2, 3, 4, so sharp 4. So my C major blues scale is the exact same as my A minor blues scale. So here's the C major. And if I start on A minor. So same thing. And that's why it's important to know how to do this. So when you play through that, okay, here's A. So there you have it. So thinking through a couple more of these here, if I go back to my G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. So that's my G major scale. The sixth degree of that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like we talked about a moment ago, is E. So, okay. All right. The G major pentatonic scale, get rid of 4 and 7. So, E minor. So again, for that major pentatonic scale, we add that flat 3. So then if we start on E and use that same set of notes. Yeah. So the takeaway from this that I want you to remember and stick with you is every major scale has a relative minor scale, and it's found on the 6th degree. So you just start on the first note of the scale, and the first note of the scale is 1. So if we're doing the C major scale, C is 1. So you count up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and get you to A. That's your relative minor scale. So every major scale has a relative minor scale found on the 6th degree. And remember, you can either count up 6 or you can count back 3. So C, B, A, or C, D, E, F, G, A. Either direction, you'll get to the same answer. And then in regards to major pentatonic scales, you're basically getting rid of, take your major scale and you subtract 4 or 4 and 7, right? And that leaves you with your major pentatonic scale. And if you start on the 6th degree, you'll get the minor pentatonic scale. So the C major and A minor, which is the relative minor. And then for blues scales, if you add that flat third in there, then that's going to give you, if you add the flat third to your major pentatonic scale, now you have a major blues scale. And that will, if you do the relative minor of that, you'll have your relative minor blues scale. So C major blues scale is the same thing as the A minor blues scale. So that's how this works, and how to draw these conclusions and start figuring out these scales. But remember, the importance of this is so that you don't have to practice 24 different scales. You only have to practice 12, and if you know how to apply them, you're good to go, because it's the exact same key signatures, exact same notes, exact same finger patterns, all that stuff. So hopefully this has been helpful. And as I mentioned before, if you have questions, feel free to get in touch. And happy practicing. Hope you're all safe and healthy and staying good out there. And talk to you later. Bye.